7th of March, the nation mourned as former diplomat, orator, political analyst, father, and so much more passed away. This morning, we remember Reggie Dumas with Gerry Macfarlane, former THA Assemblyman, to share with us a bit more about his personal experience and friendship with Reggie. Good morning, Gerry.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to have you on this program this morning. Nice to be sharing my views and so on with you all and the rest of the national community.
It's a pleasure to have you with us on the show this morning. Thank you so much. Let's go straight into the conversation. You were a personal friend of Reginald Dumas. What was he like outside, of course, of his dedication to public service in the country?
Well, I first must start by saying that Reggie and I go back, way back when I was, especially when I started when I was a member of the Assembly and serving as a Secretary for Agriculture and State Lands and the Environment. And during that time, you had Robinson that was in power. And Robinson always told, A.N.R. Robinson, the Prime Minister then, always told us that, we could always get advice from people like Reggie Dumas and these other folks, that he was then head of the public service. And he came back from the diplomatic service, and I think 1988. And he was one of the persons that Robinson always told us we can always count on him for advice and so on. And so there's where I got to know him. And as a matter of fact, I remember on one occasion, I got a message. My secretary told me that there's Mr. Dumas on the line, and I was thinking it was Rennie Dumas. So I answered the phone in a very kind of friendly way, and I was kind of shocked hearing his voice at the other end. But he was generally very outspoken and very straightforward person, and so on. And he wanted a particular matter done where his road was a road to his family property in the Veins Road of Moriah to go down to Coffee River Retreat, which they established the retreat afterwards. We helped him establish that road going to that facility. And incidentally, when a few years after the facility was established, the Prime Minister Manning then, had meetings, used to have cabinet meetings in different parts of the country. And he chose to go to this little retreat on the edge of the rainforest to have this not a cabinet retreat, but a cabinet meeting. And so we like to talk about that and how that thing started, and to the point where a prime minister could decide he's having a cabinet meeting in this little retreat on the edge of the rainforest. You could say in the rainforest, you could say, so that was an interesting introduction to Reggie Dumas in my early years in politics and public life.
Now, one of the things that you would have mentioned, Mr. Macfarlane, is that Mr. Dumas was quite outspoken. Tell us about your experiences and perhaps what you would say his thoughts were on the Tobago political landscape.
Well, I said generally he's a scholar in a sense, a philanthropist and, very forthright with his thinking. And for me personally, he was somebody I could have confided with. I learned a lot from him. In many different spheres and activities. I used to have a program on Channel 5 called Spot On, and Reggie Dumas, was one of the more featured persons on my program, because he has the depth of knowledge and interests and persuasiveness that he had with the community, not only the national community, but from Tobago, where he came from. And started his career, going to QRC and then on to different other universities, Cambridge and so on. So he was experienced and knowledgeable, spent many years in the diplomatic service. Robinson brought him back to be head of the public service in 1986 when they won the election. So he was quite respected in Tobago generally. And I used to associate myself with him in many, many areas, things that I want to know more about, things he might have interest in, and so on. And he will always be ready to accept me and so on. A simple thing like, I said, Reggie boy, I have a lot of documents and so on. I catch my tail to put them in a particular sequence to have them stored so I could actually retrieve them and so on. I want to have a look at your library, boy. And I was so impressed with this man's area that he uses his library, where he have decades of information and data on almost anything, you know. So he impressed me and many other Tobagonians. We consider him very respectable, scholarly in his input and his conversations. And he's somebody that will be sadly missed. You know, he joined a team of persons from Tobago who contributed beyond the national community. Willie Dumas, Eugenio Moore, and some of these people, Doddridge Allen, all these people were top public servants, in many administrations in Trinidad and Tobago. And we were fortunate and blessed to have persons like Reggie Dumas here in Tobago, residing, especially after his stint in the public service and the foreign service. He resided here in Tobago, and we made full use of him. We won't agree with him on everything. And of course, that is the nature of human beings. But whatever, there are certain things. I told you I had a program on Channel 5, Spot On, where we expose people, we praise people, we highlight different things in current affairs. Reggie Dumas was one of those persons who came on the program and really gave buffer and fillip to the program, I should say. And there are certain things too, which I couldn't discuss, that issues are happening in the space, that I choose not to put it on the air or on television on the network, and I will have a discussion with Reggie privately and confidentially. And Reggie will find ways to deal with it or bring it to the attention to relevant people to stop this particular practice or certain things, This is what I like about the man. And we can confide. We can talk even about his personal health. There's somebody who told me and explained to me what his knee replacement surgery is about. And he told me how he did it, how he went through this thing, and how he survived and this thing. And this is more than 40 years ago, but we had this good relationship and well-respected view of each other and understand our shortcomings and so on. Still very stubborn, saying stubborn not in a degrading way, but very forthright in his position. I don't know if you were maybe too young to remember, he was on that Constitution Commission doing the Constitution Review of Trinidad and Tobago with, I think, Sir Hugh Wooding, Wooding Commission, yeah. And looking at the Constitution, and there were areas in which there were disagreement with he and the rest of the commissioners. And in that particular period, I remember Reggie telling me that he had to do a minority report to the Prime Minister with respect to his view on the role that the commission took with respect to certain things. He disagreed, and he had a minority report that was presented. So he's well respected. I could remember he always told me before I knew of Kofi Annan about Kofi Annan. And when Kofi Annan became the Secretary General of the UN, he told me he was in touch with Kofi Annan. There was this earthquake and this disaster in Haiti, and he made him special advisor to Haiti. And I have been there to Haiti before the disaster. So when he was appointed, I understood what the task that he was going to do. So we always in contact with what was happening in Haiti. And I went back after the disaster because he was well known. He had a good friend who was part of the UN team in Haiti, or stationed in Haiti. And when I went there first, I met this guy. And when I went back, they told me that he was one of the casualties of the disaster in Haiti. But what is most interesting about his encounter with Haiti, and as a matter of fact, there's a book that he wrote on that. I just put my hand on that this morning. But he did his report to the special advisor as a special advisor to Kofi Annan on what he saw, what are some of the recommendations. It was very thorough and very in-depth, a lot of history in this document. Pity I couldn't get a chance to review it this morning. But he, in addition and separate and apart from his contribution to the status of Haiti at that time and what were his recommendations, he personally took up the task of rebuilding, I think it's about 3 schools in Haiti. I don't know if you've been to Haiti. Haiti is a place that you have to pay for your education. You have to pay for it. Imagine that. And he took upon himself to raise funds. I think it was in Meredith, Haiti Relief Fund. And he repaired schools, and he raised funds, internationally and locally. Many people contributed to this fund. He was the chairman of this fund. And he was go back and forth to Haiti to see how the reconstruction of the schools were going and how the children were doing in the schools, and paid the teachers. At that time, the teachers wouldn't get paid. People come to school. You can't come to school if you ain't paid. And the poor country like Haiti, he ended up paying the teachers so that the children don't have to pay to go to school, so in order for the teachers to get paid. So that to me was one of his fantastic philanthropic works, that he did, that I always will remember, especially in light of the fact that I knew him. I knew what Haiti looked like before the disaster, and I knew what Haiti looked like after the disaster. So I could really appreciate what he did for Haiti, in a private capacity. No government or UN didn't give any funding for that, separate and apart from the special exercise that he did.
Wow.
So I really appreciate, and one thing must be noted as well. Every government that came into office in Trinidad and Tobago, and almost every THA administration that came into government while he was in this country, whether as head of the public service, permanent secretary and head of the public service, or after he retired, every government sought his advice and his opinion to guide them in the way forward, especially in dealing with the public service. Every government, I think he told me, except one. So from Manning to Pandey to Robinson and all these other heads of government, I think Kamala as well, in the THA, over London, and before that, I think the first chief secretary, Hochoy Charles, all these persons saw it absolutely necessary to get counsel and advice from Reggie Dumas.
Wow.
And I must tell you too that we took pleasure in knowing that the University of the West Indies, I think was in 2017, gave him the honors, the Doctor of Laws and Philosophy at the University of the West Indies, So he did a tremendous amount of work here in this country and outside of this country. Well respected, and he's gonna be really missed.
Yes, he definitely will be missed. Mr. Macfarlane, thank you so much for sharing with us this morning some incredible insights into the just phenomenal life of Reggie Dumas and the dedication that he showed, not just to our country, but to the world. It's been a pleasure to be with you, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon to continue the conversation.
It'll be a pleasure. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have an excellent day. Gerry Macfarlane, former THA Assemblyman and personal friend of Reggie Dumas, discussing just a touch on his legacy. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a few moments on the Now Morning Show.